Excellent. I do believe that I'm right about on the range of being able to show something that I've never quite been able to properly explain. The original video for this is going to be gone, I'm absolutely certain. At least based off of my memories. And I did my best to try and search for the information itself and could not find it. However, I know for a fact that there's 2 exclusion zones on mob spawners. The normal exclusion zone is, well, originally an 8x8, and then it becomes a 9 cube. And technically you want to bring it out to closer to, what is it, 11 squared when working with normal skinny mobs, which means that you would want to bring it out to 13 squared when working with a spider, such that they don't have a chance to touch the wall. And then I do believe I've actually gone out, that would be 6 blocks away from the spawner, so I do believe I've gone out 7 on this room, just to make sure that the spiders never land close enough to the wall, that even if they're strong swimmers, that they don't manage to reach the edge, which of course keeps them off of the walls entirely. Now, when it comes to the other exclusion zone, it's a 17 square area, which means that it's looking outwards from the mob spawner block by 8 blocks in all directions. Now, this is the old exclusion zone from before version 1.8, the Bountiful update. And at that point in time, their exclusion zones are strict all the way down to a 9 cube once again. However, I do not know the version in which I discovered this feature. Perhaps it was that it was removed, although I doubt that it was actually truly removed. Mob spawners do look outwards 8 blocks from their physical block, and if they come across a chunk boundary, they'll load the next chunk and begin to look at it from the perspective of the mob spawner, and list everything, every entity, not just their own specific mob, but every entity will be logged and tracked by the mob spawner itself. Now, in here, the, chunk boundary should be right around here, which means that from the edge of the spawner block, I do believe it's something like... Okay, I think this is... No, this is definitely the chunk boundary right here, which means that with that one looking 8 blocks out, it comes just to the very edge of the sub-chunk, but no further. Or to the edge of the chunk boundary, but no further. Now, this is actually important because each of the mob spawners, if they're close together, they're all loading independently lists of everything that each other ones are loading. And if they're spread out, then it means that each of them, will be searching a much greater area altogether, but overlapping mobs are less likely to be influencing each other. For example, something from the back wall and the front wall won't be necessarily influencing each other too much right off the bat. Except for I do believe that those back wall mob spawners are actually... I was gonna say they're actually a little bit towards this side of the chunk boundary, but I do believe that that's incorrect. I do believe that they're almost on the edge of the next chunk boundary, meaning that the entire, at least sub-chunk, and most likely entire chunk data is being looked at for entities, whereas this chunk, or perhaps it's a pair of chunks, I can't remember where the split is inside of the room, is not being looked at all. And because, of course, I'm outside of the mob spawning range as well, it means that I can actually turn it off for the purpose of getting these guys dead. 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, I'm not going to bother using a looting sword on this mash, mainly because I want to quickly collect all the trash and try to head back inside of there, working to be as close to the verge of, come on, of where there's still lag as possible, such that we go from a not laggy environment of me just being out here to a laggy environment of me being inside of there where the mob spawners are able to calculate the XP orbs that are floating around me. Have I picked up all the trash off the ground yet? Good. We'll give this just a brief moment, and then I'll rush off inside. This will help me estimate how lag is doing. Oh! And now we get to watch the lag come straight back. I may have been just a bit too late on rushing in. But there was a tiny spike, tiny visible spike on running back into the room. I know that trying to run it with fewer entities is much more difficult to go and show using the camera than it is to actually run it using, how do I describe it? Using the video game as it is without the camera running. Because when recording it, it has slightly higher system resources. Now, I'm also going to upgrade, just for a brief moment at least, once I've finished picking up all these orbs, so that I can actually show where the walls are within here when it comes to the chunk boundary. Because I do believe that this point right here should be 17 blocks away from the mob spawner, so there should be, let's count, 16? 1, 2, 3. 16. There we are, yeah. 16 blocks. Okay, so yeah, it's on the 17th, which means, of course, that even if I were even with the edge of over there, just by being here I would be outside of its checked range. Do I risk it? Saving right now with entities inside of it. I think no, because that's probably more spiders than I can fight at once. There we go. Now I'll go ahead and upgrade so that you can see the walls themselves. Right then, now that we're inside of an updated version and I've also got access to flight, I can properly and quickly count out how many blocks away from the edge this is, which is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that would be the one that's the closest to a wall. And then as for the front ones, which the two of you, okay, you're the closer to the front. We've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then press F3 and G, and we can still see that we've got 2 more blocks before the sub-chunk barrier. Whereas over in this direction, we've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we cross the chunk boundary, meaning that this mob spawner, even if it's not true in this version, or future versions, past versions, it's true that this one is loading this chunk and looking at its entity data to figure out what's inside of it. Now, all the same for back here, this one is most certainly outside of the range of loading the next one beyond the wall. However, both of these are looking to the other side of this wall here, which leaves them looking at, dark areas that I have not finished lighting up. And slime chunks. Ah! Which means that I should dig my way around the outside of this thing and try to crash into the backside for getting this last little bit over here lit up, and making doubly sure that no mobs can spawn in this area, because any mobs which do spawn in this area are going to have their positions tracked by the mob spawners. Even if I can't properly demonstrate it, I know it to be truth. Let's take a look at this one as well. Where are you? There you are. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's absolutely looking on the other side of this wall too. Which means that that wall would be no good, this wall would be no good, and this wall would be no good. Meaning that of the correct directions to go and place the mobs, there was only one correct direction to go, which of course placed them over here. Now, I do believe, how thick is that? 3 blocks? It would mean that if I dug back into here by 4 blocks, yes, at the position that the spiders are spawning, even if I'm directly away from the closest cardinal direction spawner, I'm outside of its range of being turned on, meaning that I'm also well outside of the range at which it can detect, meaning that that's actually the closest that I can put those spiders without risking trouble from over there. Now, of course, while I'm taking a peek, you can see that each of these is 2 wide channels with a diagonal water source and moving up stairs, such to make sure that the spiders are almost always in contact with water. Now, in a few of the future versions, particularly after the combat update, they can actually, their hitboxes are a little better calculated so they can hide out of the water streams. But I do believe that by that point in time you have far more hitboxes available to yourself for keeping these little buggers contained. Now, if I were to apply the exact same principle to the other side of the room, I would find a pair of zombie spawners, and I would find them located like this, such that this one is relatively close to that chunk barrier, and this one is... okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one is looking backwards into this chunk. This one is not looking forward into that chunk. And then, how far from this edge are you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this one is definitely loading in that direction, which means that that way's bad, that way's bad. This way's also bad because it's being viewed. However, the one location where they're both not looking would be right over here. And that also means that, say for example, if I 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Technically, I would want to place the zombies at a location like that. That way, even if it were straight cardinal directions in all directions and square, I would have the zombies in such a location that it wouldn't matter. And by looking outwards ever so slightly, where is it? Didn't look low enough. And that by looking outwards ever so slightly, the best probable location would be here, to have them all dumped away. because I do believe that that's roughly equal distance from both mob spawners, and it would only require me to replace some of this area here with glass such to give me a thematic view of the area. But once again, you know, like all the others, this is the only true exclusion zone, with that being an added extra in case of offsets. And then the other exclusion zone is one that I've simply found in changelogs, which I cannot locate again. So they may have actually gotten rid of, for all I know, gotten rid of the entirety of all the old patch notes. Now, as for why get rid of them, probably because it's confusing to have someone read from version 1.0 all the way to whatever is current version, and then keep all of those rules inside of their head while trying to figure out which ones apply and which ones don't. Or it could just be laziness, or it could be that the page has changed, or the site could be gone, or any other number of things. But I do know for a fact that these look inside of sub-chunks that they're nearby if they intersect that 8-block range. Always. Well, maybe not always, but definitely always. Especially if you're, let's say in an older version. You know, the older the better.